In 2017, the Professional Fight League was formed as a contender to the UFC's dominance in North America, with the promise of a $1 million cash prize enticing several fighters to the upstart promotion. While UFC alum found success in the PFL, it's been the bigger names that failed to adapt to their new surroundings. Today, we look at the stars that found the grass is not always greener on the other side. Welcome to the INC, and these are 5 UFC stars who flopped in the PFL. There was once a time Anthony Pettis was one of the biggest names in MMA. Pettis first entered the spotlight when he signed for the WEC in 2009, and thanks to his mix of flashy kicks with his potent submission game, he built a reputation as one of lightweight's most feared fighters, winning titles in both the WEC and later the UFC in 2013. Although both would pale in comparison to him getting a spot on the Wheaties box. While Pettis' star faded in the later part of the decade, wins over Charles Oliveira and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson proved the fighter still had some mileage. And when the UFC chose not to renew the fighter's contract in 2020, it did not take long for the PFL to snap up the 34-year-old. Pettis made his PFL debut against 25-fight veteran Clay Collard, a former UFC washout who'd spent the last 3 years competing in boxing, and this was seen as little more than a tune-up for the former lightweight champion. Collard, however, gave the performance of his career, dropping Pettis multiple times as the Milwaukee fighter failed to get his trademark kicking game going. Although Pettis was able to rally late in the third, it proved too little too late, with Collard claiming a unanimous decision. Further frustration followed against Raush Manfio, the Brazilian winning a split decision and eliminating Pettis from the tournament. Pettis was still invited back for a second season in 2022, believing changes to his training regime would see him return to his former glory. After beating Miles Price in May, Pettis was rewarded with a shot at Scottish striker Stevie Ray, looking to prove himself as a solo star following the breakup of Harlem Heat. After a competitive first round, the fight saw its pivotal moment in the second, as Ray took Pettis' back after a botched takedown before hammering the veteran with ground strikes, setting the stage for one of the most unique submissions in MMA history.
He can submit him. Oh, there's a tap! A twister! Stevie Ray gets the finish and secures himself a playoff spot!
Despite the disappointment, Pettis was still given a semifinal spot due to his first-round win over Price, where he'd ironically face Ray again in a rematch 6 weeks later. The bout proved much more one-sided, Ray using a grappling-heavy game to neutralize Pettis' offense and condemn Pettis to a 1-4 company record. Showtime's underachievement was underlined in the financials, when he was revealed as the company's highest-earning fighter with $750,000 per appearance. Pettis hasn't competed in MMA since that fight, and currently holds a record of 25 wins and 14 losses. The PFL was intended to revive Rory MacDonald's career. Instead, it achieved the complete opposite. MacDonald has been one of the sport's most beloved fighters. His 5-round war with Robbie Lawler at UFC 189 is regarded as one of the greatest fights of all time, before claiming his first major gold with the Bellator welterweight title in 2018. Despite this, red flags were raised over MacDonald's future, as underwhelming performances and his bizarre post-fight behavior led many to fear the Red King was past his prime. This, however, did not stop the PFL from taking a chance on the Canadian in 2021. MacDonald's tenure got off to the best possible start. After a first-round submission over Curtis Millender, the fighter was paired with fellow UFC veteran Gleison Tibau. MacDonald got the upper hand over Tibau over 15 minutes and seemingly claimed a comfortable win over his veteran opponent. The key word here being seemingly.
There was maybe a round that was close, but even that round I thought Rory won.
The first round was close. That's the only round I thought was close.
That's an indefensible decision.
The decision is regarded as one of the most egregious in recent years, with every MMA journalist scoring the fight in favor of MacDonald, with some fans even suggesting the PFL fixed the result to get the big-name Tibau into the second round. In the short term, the loss moved MacDonald to the other side of the bracket into a semifinal match with Ray Cooper III, the Hawaiian fighter neutralizing MacDonald on the ground and out of the competition. MacDonald's sophomore season played out in similar fashion. He claimed a first-round submission over Brett Cooper, and this was followed by a loss to a 3-1 underdog, Fabrrio Vum. McDonald appearing disinterested as the Senegal-born Swede claimed a unanimous decision. McDonald had been set to face Magomed Umalatov, but visa issues saw him instead paired with Delano Taylor on 3 days' notice. Taylor, who'd already been eliminated from the contest, made the most of his second chance, catching McDonald with a big right hand and handing McDonald the earliest loss of his career. Amid questions over his motivation, the fight would be McDonald's last in MMA, the fighter calling time on his career at the comparatively early age of 34. McDonald's legacy, however, would get the kudos it deserved, as his classic bout with Lawler was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2023. It took just one fight to derail Fabrrio Vum's PFL tenure. Vum is regarded as one of the greatest heavyweight fighters of all time, holding notable wins over Fyodor Emelianenko, Minotauro Nogueira, and Cain Velasquez, the latter earning the Brazilian the UFC heavyweight title in 2015. In 2018, Vum was granted a 2-year USADA suspension after testing positive for trenbolone. And while the fighter returned with a win over Alexander Gustafsson, the UFC decided not to renew the 43-year-old's contract, leading him to the grateful arms of the PFL, who signed the veteran to a 1-year deal. Vum's debut came against fellow Brazilian Renan Ferreira. Vum seemingly had the match won by locking Ferreira in a triangle choke, only for the Team Nogueira fighter to reverse the hold and land heavy ground and pound from the back, claiming what appeared to be an upset win over the MMA legend. Vum, however, immediately protested the result, claiming that Ferreira had actually tapped out without the referee taking notice, and that the reversal position was due to Vum releasing the hold thinking the match was over. So-called Brazilian taps are heavily frowned upon in MMA and BJJ, the post-fight replays further vindicating Vum's displeasure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tap. That's not a defense. I mean,
That's a tap.
that's a tap.
In a rare victory, Vum's team successfully managed to get the result overturned, with the New Jersey State Athletic Commission declaring the fight a no contest and Vum rewarded points for the event. It ultimately, however, proved worthless, as Vum was forced to withdraw from his sophomore bout with Matt Sales and eliminated from the competition, with the PFL announcing they would not retain the veteran for a second season. Vum's last MMA appearance came earlier this year when he took on fellow veteran Junior Dos Santos for Jorge Masvidal's Bare Knuckle MMA League, losing a hard-fought contest by split decision. While still early in her run, it's safe to say Aspen Lad's PFL run has failed to match expectations. Lad was once regarded as one of women's MMA's biggest prospects, her elite-level back control and ground and pound pushing her to the cusp of a bantamweight title fight, but her constant inability to make weight led her to being released by the UFC in 2022. Just 7 days after her release, Lad was picked up by the PFL and made her company debut against fellow newcomer Julia Budd. A competitive yet tame bout saw Lad claim a split decision over the former Bellator champion and entered 2023's featherweight tournament as one of the preseason favorites. Lad began her campaign against 7-5 Olena Kolesny. Despite being a heavy underdog, Kolesnik neutralized all of Lad's takedowns while piecing the Californian apart on the outside, claiming a unanimous decision and a rare credibility moment for women's 145. Lad and Kolesnik would lock horns once again for the final spot in the semifinals. After Kolesnik claimed a decision win over Yoko Higashi, Lad entered her match with Karolina Sobek, believing a second-round stoppage would surpass the Ukrainian in the standings. And in the dying stages of the round, the fighter did just that.
Sobek there it is! Taps! Oh! Aspen Lad with the Fab 5 finish and clinches her playoff spot!
At least, that's what everyone thought. It later transpired the PFL's rules prioritized wins over finishes in the event of a tie. And with Kolesnik claiming 2 wins during the main season, it meant Lad had been eliminated from the competition before her second fight even took place. A rare dunce moment from the PFL smart cage. While Lad is expected to return to the PFL in 2024, the underwhelming performances added with her $100,000 fight purse warrants her place on this list. Although, given what happened to Kolesnik in her semifinal, you could argue the Californian dodged a bullet.
Right hand there from Pacheco, and another lands, and another big right hand. Pacheco, less than a minute!
Shane Bergos' stuttering PFL career is arguably the most damning for hardcore fans. Unlike others on this list, Bergos was in his prime when he signed for the PFL in 2022, having developed a reputation as one of the UFC's most exciting fighters, with Dana White expressing regret at not securing the New Yorker to a new contract. Bergos announced he would be competing in the PFL's lightweight division the following year, admitting the lure of $1 million cash prize was just too tempting to turn down.
It was not an easy decision. It was just one of those. It was an offer I couldn't turn it up. I mean, I got 2 daughters. I got to go back home and I got to look at them in their face and be like, you know, it was worth it when it's all said and done in the sport. I know they're putting a lot of trust and a lot of stock into me. I'm still in my prime. I'm only 31 years old. Yeah, I'm gonna make the absolute most out of this deal.
Bergos was given a baptism by fire for his company debut, taking on reigning champion Olivier Aubin-Mercier in the opening round. The Canadian gangster used a wrestling-heavy game to neutralize Bergos over 3 rounds, claiming a unanimous decision and playing spoiler to the Bronx fighter's aspirations. Bergos rebounded with a decision win over Yamato Nishikawa, but 3 points from his first 2 fights saw the Hurricane blown out of the competition. That was until the PFL made the controversial decision to disqualify Nathan Schulte and Hausch Manfio following a tepid match the company claimed did not meet the standards fighters agree to uphold in competition. The PFL finding out the hard way that booking 2 best friends to fight one another almost never works out. While the decision led to accusations of favoritism, it did pit Bergos in a dream match with Clay Collard in the semifinal. The bout lived up to all expectations, with Collard and Bergos bludgeoning one another in one of the best fights in company history. But it was one Bergos would be the second best in, as Collard claimed the judge's decision, handing Bergos his first ever loss in his home state. Bergos will get the chance to redeem himself in his sophomore season, but the fighter is well aware hard work is required if he wishes to lose his spot on this list. And now, time for a few honorable mentions. Former UFC title challenger Thiago Santos entered the PFL in the best shape of his career. It's easy to see why after testing positive for steroids following his loss to Rob Wilkinson. Jeremy Stephens went from being the UFC's greatest gatekeeper to doing the exact same thing in the PFL. Marlon Moraes hoped his PFL tenure would help revive his failing career.
Yeah, he's already limping on.
Oh! Gabriel Braga! Wow! Dispatches Marlon Moraes in the first!
It didn't. This is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another video.